All right, greetings. Sorry for the little late start, but who is Israel? And I think that question is really important, especially with the war that we are now having with Iran, because it is largely, if not entirely, over a theological understanding of who is Israel that is absolutely false. Okay. We're at war with Iran right now, primarily because the Republican Party is heavily driven by neoconservatives, and neoconservatives are Zionist and mostly Christian Zionists, i.e., evangelicals, Baptists, non-denominational, the whole kit and caboodle. Some maybe even Hebrew. And what's sad about this, now war is war. Wars are going to happen. Wars, rumors of wars, like Christ says. But what's sad about it is that it's going to war over a false ecclesiology, which is the doctrine of the church. That's the reason we're going over a total false thing. Because evangelicals feel theologically obligated to support the modern state of Israel, which they believe is the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. And so they feel like we're obligated as America, especially with the heavy Christian population, that we need to do Israel's bidding. Now, who is Israel? Who's Israel? Well, Israel in the Old Testament was a 12-tribe nation, ethnic tribes, right? An ethnic nation that had sub-ethnicities, 10 northern tribes that comprise the kingdom of the house of Israel, which is also called Ephraim. So they are Ephraimites, not Jews. This is the big confusion with this is where evangelicals a lot of them do purposely deceive and try to tell you, oh, all the 12 tribes of Israel are Jews. That's false. Israelites, all Jews are Israelites, but not all Israelites are Jews. Just like all Californians are Americans, not all Americans are Californians. So you have that. Okay? You have the southern kingdom of Judah, known as Judahites, the house of Judah. They comprise Benjamin and Judah. Now, Levi is kind of part of that as well. So Levi can be considered, in some sense, a Judahite, I believe. They were kind of outside the southern-northern distinction, I believe. And, so that's the division. 12 tribes, 10 northern, 2 southern. And Levi can also be grouped probably into Judah. Although initially they were outside that 12 tribe kind of southern-northern divide. But when we go to the New Testament, things change. Okay? And I believe it begins with Matthew 2:15. Joseph, in fear of Herod, being warned of a dream, took Jesus, Mary, and they went to Egypt to hide out. They were then given the clear to leave Egypt. And Matthew 2:15, Matthew quotes, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." That's from Hosea. Well, that was a reference to Israel. Out of Egypt I have called my son. The Israelites, God's firstborn son, leaving Egypt to start their own nation. And that right there is significant because going forward, Israel was to be identified by all those who received by faith the true Israel, Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God. Okay? Now, the word Jew, there's some controversy with that because it's a rather new word, meaning in the last few hundred years. In terms of the word Judean is just somebody who lived in Judea. Really, I believe the proper word should be Judahite. And that's important because the modern people that claim to be Jews, it's really a religious identification at this point. Because the ethnicity that we now call Jews are heavily mixed with the various nations that they've traveled for the last 2,000 years in. And even by the time of Jesus, Judea was mixed with a lot of Edomites who had not infiltrated, but who had been conquered by the Judahites and been absorbed into the Judean nation. They were conquered and then, I guess, forced initially, but then they adopted it, the religion of the temple religion. Paul says not even to get into genealogy, so we shouldn't really worry about too much what they are, but it is clear that they are not one for one the Israelites of, they're not the Judahites of the Old Testament. And they're not the Judahites even of Jesus' time. Okay? So when you think of Jesus, he is a Judahite. Anyways, Jesus is the new Israel, and he's confirmed to be the king of Israel by Nathanael in John 1:49. So during Jesus' earthly life, he is acknowledged as the rightful king of Israel, and obviously God's only begotten son. There is a sifting going on during Jesus' kingdom mission. And that sifting is those Israelites who reject Jesus as the Christ, the now reigning Davidic king, and reject him as God's only begotten son, they are cut off the olive tree. What's insane today about evangelical, Baptist, Messianics, Hebrews, what's insane about them today is that they will tell you that we owe Jews, modern Jews, we owe them because we were grafted into their olive tree. Make that make sense to me, how we're grafted into an olive tree, a supposed olive tree that rejects Christ, says blasphemous things about him, put him on the cross, supposedly, and I don't know this for sure, their Talmud says some very vile things about him. But even if it doesn't, but it does from what I hear, but they blaspheme him all day long. They blaspheme him. And yet we're grafted into their olive tree. Do these not people realize that modern day Jews and modern day Israel, that even if they were true ethnic Judahites, that they were cut off? How are we grafted into something that's been cut off? So we're grafted into the olive tree, and that olive tree was the apostles, the Old Testament Israelites, because the Old Testament Israelites prophesied of Jesus, would have received that. I'm talking about the prophets and the faithful ones, they would have received Jesus. That's the olive tree we're grafted into. And really, at the end of the day, if you want to say we're grafted into an olive tree, it's Jesus, the holy vine of David. He's the vine. We're the branches. This ridiculous notion that we're grafted in to modern day Israel and modern day Jews who hate Christ, it just absolutely shows you that the wool over the eyes is seen as placed over a lot of Christianity. And the Catholics, again, the modern day Catholicism, it's the same thing, a little different. They do more double speak on this JQ. So, what are we talking about here? A lot of people shy away from the term replacement theology. Again, like the word anti-Semitism, it's a made-up word, made up in recent times to gaslight people into not stating the truth. And in this case, the truth is that the church is the new Israel. That the church has replaced, really the better word would be fulfilled. But the reason why I don't shy away from replacement theology is because it is actually replacement. Because Jesus told in Matthew 21:43, the king, he tells Judah, the rulers of Judah, tells them, the kingdom will be taken from you and given to a nation that would bear the fruits thereof. The kingdom will be taken from them and given to a nation that would bear the fruits thereof. That is replacement, if I ever heard it. Now, probably the absolute best term for this would be Commonwealth theology, the Commonwealth of Israel. I like that too. That's probably ultimately the best term. But I don't shy away from replacement because of Matthew 21:43. And there's a lot of theological depth to who replaced Judah, who got, well, the birthright of the kingdom goes to Ephraim, and out of Ephraim would come a multitude of nations, Genesis 48, I believe. And those multitude of nations are the Gentiles. So, I mean, it's just amazing to me that people don't actually read scripture when you talk about evangelicals, Christian Zionists as a whole. Okay? Paul says that we are, as Christians, he's writing to Gentiles now, and obviously if there's any ethnic Israelite, they would be included that live in Colossae. You have been, past tense, translated into the kingdom of the Son of God. Well, what is the kingdom of the Son of God? That term didn't come out of nowhere. It comes from the Old Testament. It comes from the Davidic covenant, 2 Samuel chapter 7. And that kingdom was a promise to David's royal offspring, where Jehovah tells David, I will be his father, he will be my son, I will establish his kingdom forever. Well, hence the kingdom of the Son of God. It's the Davidic kingdom. The Davidic kingdom is the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Jehovah, all one kingdom, no separation. So, are you getting it here? Gentiles being called the kingdom, the Davidic kingdom, Gentile Christians. Gentile Christians being, along with Israelite Christians being called the Davidic kingdom, Acts 15. I'll get more into that in another video. Colossians 2, we're all the Commonwealth of Israel. We were once strangers, but now we're the Commonwealth of Israel. So if you want to say there are Israelites that we got grafted into, it's the apostles, it's the Israelites that actually received Jesus as the Christ and the Son of God. Definitely grant you that. And Jesus, the ultimate Israelite, the true Israel, that's the olive tree we're grafted into. The holy vine of David. All nations, tribes, and tongues in Revelation 5, 9, and 10, 1, 5, and 6. 1 Peter 2, 9, and 10, being referred to as a kingdom and priest. Kingdom, kings and priests, a royal priesthood, Israelite titles. Hebrews 13, the New Testament church being referred to as the church of the firstborn, an Israelite title. Israel was God's firstborn. So what's causing all this? It's the false ecclesiology, eschatology of dispensationalism, which not all Christian Zionists are dispensational, because there are some that are non-dispensational, but they still believe in the dispensational ecclesiology of the church not being Israel. And they still believe in a future millennial earthly kingdom where Jesus sets up shop in earthly Jerusalem on the throne of David for the first time, reinstituting the Mosaic temple, reinstituting sacrifices. That is still Zionism, and it is satanic. And what these Christian Zionists do, oh, well, God's a Zionist. Yeah, he's a heavenly Zionist. What they won't tell you is that Zion is now in heaven, guys. It's not on earth anymore. Little gotchas. God is not a Zionist in the way they understand Zionism. And the church is Israel. The ultimate Israel is Jesus Christ, Matthew 2:15. That's what we're grafted into. We're not grafted into a modern day state that started 60, 70, 80 years ago, the people that hate Christ, that aren't even the ethnic Israelites of the Bible. So, anyways, hail Christ, hail victory.